You guys really don't know when it's good or bad when it comes right down to it. You really don't know because you don't know what we're trying to do. You guys don't look at the films. You don't know what happened. You really don't know. You think you know, but you don't know, and you never will.
To come home because I have a very special love.
The media public doesn't know. You guys don't know. Sometimes it won't. I can tell you it won't be good, and you'll see it won't be good. Sometimes you'll think it's good, and it isn't any good. Sometimes you'll think it's bad, and it was pretty darn good. Sometimes you'll think it's bad, and it was bad. But basically, you really don't know.
Welcome back to the Packers Corner, Beta Boys Weekly podcast. After this week, we're going to have quite the takes, I imagine. It was a rough one to get through. The Packers lose 27-22 in London to the New York Football Giants. Schmitty, last week you said that the Packers were, if they continued their play, they were going to let a family down that traveled, saved up their money to go see them. I sure hope no Wisconsin families made the trip over to London there, but I'm thinking somebody probably did. What do you say to a family that did that?
That absolutely sorry. Your quarterback let you down. The team let you down. Thousands of dollars down the drain on a flight to London. Had a great time, probably eating crumpets and tea and seeing all the nice sights and getting all juiced up, ready for the game. You know, Tommy and Susie, they're playing catch. And they walk out of that game with tears rolling down, dripping from their chin. Absolutely shameful. Absolutely shameful. Tale of two halves. You were rolling in the first. The Giants come out, knock you in the mouth, 8-minute drive, and your response was 3 plays, 30 seconds. Give the ball back to the Giants, who are had our defense reeling, absolutely exhausted, and that was it. That's the game. Sorry.
What was the most disappointing part of it all for you, Dad?
You know, usually I take notes and I kind of write down my thoughts and get organized. And I just decided this time I'm just going stream of consciousness. I mean, this thing is so disappointing. I got 3 maybe main culprits. Joe Barry. I got to talk about Darnell Savage, who's conspicuous by his absent ability to ever make a play. And I can't help but think what A.J. Brown, D.K. Metcalf, or Deebo Samuel would look like on this team. All 3 guys who were passed when 2 fourth-round draft picks, check me on this, were used to move up 10 spots to grab a 195-pound safety from Maryland, because nobody else could have him. And it wasn't like we were going to get some guy from Alabama or Clemson or Auburn or Texas or no, we got a 195-pound boy. He's fast though. I'm exercised about him. No plays. Joe Barry's worse. Clearly the guys do not believe in his system. He doesn't engender any confidence at all. He can't make an adjustment during the game. The Giants, now you understand, Griff and I were in the clinic learning our new software, so we didn't get to see much of the second half. I just, boom, the second half was over. I went and went back and rewatched it. The Giants had the ball 3 times. They drove the length of the field and kicked a field goal with the opening kickoff of the second half. Then the Packers made it to midfield, and Rodgers on 3rd down and field goal range did what? Took a sack. That's my 3rd guy, our $50 million quarterback, who's getting paid to outplay a 3rd-string rookie from the Patriots and Daniel Jones, and he can't get it done. Okay, so Rodgers takes a sack. We get no points there. We kick them inside the 10. They go 90 yards, take up most of the clock in the 3rd quarter, score a touchdown to tie the game. We proceed to throw 3 incomplete passes. They get the ball back, take up half of the 4th quarter with another 90-yard drive and score the go-ahead touchdown. And we got one last drive in which we think we have to throw the ball with a minute to go in the ball game. Now, what's going to happen, Schmitty, if we score with a minute to go in that ball game? The defense has done squat all second half to stop. They're just going to go down and kick the winning field goal. So it is indefensible. My mind is about to explode that you do not give the ball to Aaron Jones or Dylan either. Jonesy. Give it to Jonesy twice. He's not going to make 2 yards. Come on. So I'll take a breath and get a drink of water and calm down for a minute here.
Well, let's get it straight from the quarterback's mouth and his post-game reaction here, guys.
Frankly, I don't like all this conversation about losing next week. I'm a firm believer in the power of words and manifestation, and we got to check ourselves on that, because talking about that's not winning football. There was conversation about it in the locker room, and I don't like it. And Josh's my guy, but we don't need to be talking like that. I understand there's a reality in this game, but there's a win and a loss every single game, but there's also a reality in life that what you're putting your energy towards, that's where your focus is going to go. So I'm not going to address prospects of losing up here other than we just lost this game. Offensively, we haven't put two halves together. There's a lot that factors into that. Everything from calls to execution, to the momentum, to defensive stops, to adjustments that we make that are good or shouldn't make. But it's a lot of execution. And there's games like this where our defense is not going to be up to their normal standards, and we got to pick them up. We had chances, a lot of chances. So definitely the offense. This one will weigh heavy on us on this fight back.
Well, there's Aaron's response kind of being asked about the chatter. Jair Alexander was asked if he was nervous after their performance today, and he said, well, I might be pretty nervous if we lose again next week. And that was his kind of response to that. I think in terms of focus and energy, it seems like Aaron Rodgers has been devoting quite a bit of focus to his wardrobe as of late. And maybe if we spent a little more time in the film room, he's been noted as not quite being a Tom Brady, Peyton Manning level guy of film analyzer. I don't know if that's contributing to what we're seeing, but what's your takeaway from what his response was after the game there, Schmitty?
Take some of those crystals that you found in Madagascar and put them around your head and sleep outside under the stars. Figure it out. Manifest wins. This is a business. Wins and losses matter. None of this talk of manifesting just proper attitudes and vibing. None of that. That doesn't matter. What matters is your play calling at the line of scrimmage. So figure that out. Get everyone in line. This is nonsense. $50 million to Gar's point. This is the guy that should right all wrongs, and it doesn't appear to be going that way. And so you're going to go up against a team in the New York Jets here in 6 days, and that's not a team that's going to lay over. Teams don't lay over against the Green Bay Packers. It doesn't happen. So manifest wins. What does that look like? Hold everyone accountable in the locker room. Everyone should be staying late, long hours. Figure this out. This is an opportunity to win by more than 2 scores, and that's what should happen on Sunday.
Dad, what do you have in response to Aaron Rodgers?
Well, I agree with both of you guys. I found your observation right on, Griff. It was what I was thinking about when he was talking about the manifestation of the energy in the universe all coming together at one point at the same time.
As he sits there in a blouse.
To create some sort of a void in the source of the source of the force, maybe, perhaps, since he looked like kind of the dark Sith Lord with that get up that he had on, that long shawl that went down to his knees, and the Star Wars boots and the scarf. And where's the energy? Who has the energy to put on a pair of jeans and tennis shoes and a T-shirt and get on the bloody flight? I mean, we don't have to put energy into trying to be a feminine-looking, estrogen-overladen Sith Dark Lord without a hood on. I mean, I love the guy. Listen, we love Aaron Rodgers. We love what he's done for us. I love the Aaron Rodgers who, back when he was interviewed and they said, Aaron, you didn't play as well as you could have or whatever, took took onus on himself and said, "You're right. I have to get better. I will get better." That sort of self-deprecating guy who seemed to have a little humility. He just seems too full of himself. I don't know if it's rubbing off on the team or not. Hopefully that's not the issue, but I firmly believe that we have a problem with our defensive coordinator. I would really like to hear what you guys think. We continue to get burned on crossing patterns. I don't see any pressure. Wouldn't you just lock up the receivers one-on-one and pressure the heck out of Jones and make him get rid of the ball like you should have done against the rookie quarterback? Dare those guys to beat you. Crowd the line of scrimmage. Why sit back and have a death by 1,000 cuts, especially when it keeps happening drive after drive after drive? I said last week that Joe Barry doesn't look long for this job. I would have replaced him before the flight home. I would have done a Wisconsin Badgers. I know we love Paul Christ, but it looks like they got a boost out of that move. And interesting, we could go off on that tangent. But we need a jump start with this defense. Jair Alexander clearly does not believe in the coordinator. And so that's a problem.
A couple of things occurred to me that I noticed here that were negative this week. One is Aaron Rodgers talking negatively publicly about the Jair comments. That seems like something Mike Zimmer would have done to me, where that is something you keep in-house. If he wants to tell Jair to not have negative chatter about forthcoming weeks, tell him that in the locker room. That doesn't need to be part of a press conference. And I saw another sign that was a bit concerning to me as well, and that was the defensive linemen saying they were not prepared for what the Giants were going to do on offense, and this speaks to your point with Joe Barry, but they seem to be very flabbergasted by the fact that Daniel Jones was rolling out quite a bit and weren't able to adjust to that during the game. And again, once again, if that is the case, that's not good in and of itself, but it's even worse when you're saying that publicly. That should not leak out. That is not something you say out to the public. Schmitty, what are your thoughts on Joe Barry and our defense?
The defense allows the second least amount of passing yards in the NFL. At least that was what it was going into today. But they are the worst team on crossing patterns. So we're week 5, and we haven't figured out that these teams are gashing us when they're running crossers. And while I do want to put majority of the blame on Joe Barry, when you got a kid like Stokes who's showing no ability to cover in the zone or man defensive schemes, that's an issue, especially when you have Rasul and you have a couple other kids that show some promise. I would look to switch that up, make some moves. If you know that this defense isn't doing what we all had expected, make some changes. No one's going to fault you for trying to make adjustments. The fact that we're not making any adjustments, that's the issue. And so Joe Barry needs to be held accountable. And I hope in every press conference this week, they're going to grill this guy because he needs to come up with some answers, because that was the reason. I mean, we put so much stock into our defense. This is the guy that needs to be the leader.
Now, it seems as though there's been a lot of zone defense being played. We talked about this a little bit previously. When you have the caliber of guys that we do on the perimeter with the pass rush we have up front, it seems like there'd be a lot of benefit for manning Jair up, for manning Rasul Douglas up, for manning Eric Stokes up, and let that defense kind of take care of preventing some of the big plays because they're going to get home. What's your thought about the strategy? And I know you're not a defensive coordinator and not making the big bucks for that, Dad, but do you have any thoughts on the tactics we're using and play calling?
Well, I know the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And it looks like that's where we are. This too deep shell with zones underneath, and the other team just says, fine, we'll run a crossing pattern. You can't follow us across the field. So at a bare minimum, you got to mix it up and disguise it and try something different. I just can't believe that the personnel we have is as bad as what it's being displayed on the field. And I would bet if you went into that locker room and asked Rasul Douglas and Eric Stokes and Jair Alexander, do you guys want to go press man coverage and man up and follow the guy all over the field? They would say, count me in. Let's make it a steady diet, or let's at least make it a big part of the game plan. So I just don't think the defensive personnel is as bad as what's being shown. We got Devondre Campbell. We got a nice linebacker in Quay Walker. We got a great outside rush guy in Rashawn Gary. Adrian Amos is a terrific safety. Savage, I've told you I have my questions about, mainly because of the guys that we passed up to take him. I know Goody's made some good picks, so I'll calm down and give Goody credit for a lot of the other picks he's made. But that Savage deal, I'm not seeing it. But anyway, I just think with the right leadership, that bunch can be a decent defense. It just isn't happening, and it's costing us games. I will say, Griff, I like your take on the Rodgers comment. Generally, I think Aaron handles himself very well in front of the press. He's a highly intellectual guy. His words are measured. But I think the minute you start saying that Jair is talking about losing and manifesting something negative, you make a connotation there that Jair maybe didn't even have. So now you call out a guy who's going, what's he talking about? I wasn't saying we were going to lose. I was just saying I'm frustrated and I'm not worried about the team unless we lose next week, which I don't think is much of a chance. So I think Aaron made a mistake there. He doesn't seem to do it very often, but it's not good. It's not a good look. It's not good calling out your teammate, because those guys could start calling out Aaron. Aaron missed Randall Cobb for a touchdown in the first half. He had his man beat, and Aaron underthrew it. Aaron threw some really bad balls deep down the field. And I don't hear anybody saying he needs to buck up. So I agree with your take on that.
Well, there's a couple things that make Aaron conspicuous when it comes time to point the finger at someone. And one of that, of course, is the $50 million contract that you alluded to. But also, he's a big part of the reason why we don't have Davante Adams this year. If he would have made up his mind right on and told Davante that he wants to play out a contract together and be there and finish his Green Bay Packers, Davante Adams would be wearing green and yellow. And his contract negotiations and his antics in the last offseason were also painful for us all to watch through there. And given the Jordan Love drama and is he going to play, he kind of turned into a Brett Favre the previous offseason, and we've all let that go and put it behind us. But now when you start to lose a couple games, he stands out. And then pair that with the wardrobe and the haircut, and he's drawing a lot of attention to himself, and that's fine and well when you're winning games. But when it turns negative, he's going to stand out, and so hopefully we can right the ship here sooner rather than later. One guy who has taken a fair amount of criticism on himself and kind of did what you were hoping to see a little more of Rodgers and say, hey, I need to be better, was Matt LaFleur. Let's take a listen to what he had to say after the game.
Matt, it's 20-10 and things are rolling at halftime, just kicked a field goal. And you come out in the second half, what happened?
Well, they totally took control of the game. There was long drives offensively, and then we had an opportunity on our first drive getting into field goal range, and we got sacked on third down that knocked us out of field goal range. And, you can't do that in this league, and, it's obviously very disappointing, and I think it was a collective effort. It wasn't just, you can't pinpoint one area. I think collectively, all of us, starting with myself, got to be better.
Those long drives in the second half by the Giants offensively, what did that do to your defense as far as just getting exhausted?
Yeah, I don't know. We got to go look at it. That's never an excuse. We got to find ways. We got a lot of guys on this team that we feel like can play, and we got to just do a better job.
Of course, you're knocking on the door at the end of regulation, and they bat down a couple of passes. Them just making good plays. Were there any extenuating circumstances on that?
Yeah, I think we got to take a long, hard look at what we called in those situations and not put Aaron in those, and our offense for that matter, in a situation where he's thrown over unblocked defenders.
Of course, all losses are tough to take, but I get the sense this one is extremely hard for you to handle. Is that true?
No, all losses are hard to handle, but it's how do you respond. We got a little adversity right now, and I think our guys will come back ready to work, and we've got to get a lot fixed. And it starts with us as coaches, and then it's got to trickle down to our players, and everybody's got to look at themselves and ask themselves what they can do better.
Well, there's from our coach, Matt LaFleur, after the game. One thing that he stood there, and it seemed like he made a clear effort to not hoist criticism towards Aaron Rodgers at that situation at the end of the game. But one of the things that Aaron is making the big bucks for is to be a leader and get it done in crunch time. And 2 plays down near the goal line, we all agree, I think, that it might have been better to run the ball near the end of the game there. We ended up throwing it twice, and both passes are batted down. But he's expected to come through in that sort of a situation. We're watching here tonight in the background. I see Pat Mahomes playing. I think of Josh Allen and what he was able to do this week. Do you think Aaron Rodgers is still a top 5, a top 3 quarterback? Where does he fall within the hierarchy there?
He's surely a top 5 quarterback. I don't know if he's in the top 3 category any longer. There's some kids that with very strong arms that seem to be playing very well earlier in their career. So it's hard to say.
Does he bring as much to the table as a Tom Brady does still?
Surely he does. Surely he does. At least right now. And then maybe we can revisit this come week 12 when we have 5 wins and there's a bunch of sadness around the team, and then we can poo-poo Aaron Rodgers and say this is his last year. And when you have a defeating loss like this, it's very somber, and the conversation that most Packers fans are having right now aren't very pleasant. So I still think Aaron Rodgers is still top of the class, and we would expect him to make some game-winning drives still this year. I think he still has that in him.
What does it take for him to right the ship, Dad, and what does it take for the defense to right the ship?
Well, I'm going to talk about Aaron Rodgers right now, and I have a couple questions. All I can go by is his recent history, and we talked a little bit about this in the past. You go back a couple years in the big game against Tampa Bay, he had 3 chances to change the game. He went 3 and out 3 times in a row. Against the 49ers, he had, I don't know how many chances, multiple chances to lead a drive to seal that playoff victory. Did not get it done, didn't come close to getting it done. Failed over and over with all the chips on the line. We go into Minnesota. He absolutely lays an egg. Nothing. Darn near loses to a 3rd-string quarterback against the Patriots. And this week, when we need him to make a drive, make a play, nothing. I right now, and Schmitty, I want to believe, and I have to believe, and I do believe that, this is a regression from the mean, and he's got to return somehow to the mean. He's playing way below the mean. But I really question his motivation. It seems to me when he was playing with a chip on his shoulder to try to prove Gutekunst wrong, that was his motivation. By golly, we're gonna get the upper hand with Gutekunst, and I'm gonna control my destiny, and that really seemed to turn the guy on and motivate. What's his motivation now? Doesn't seem like the Super Bowl is enough for him. It wasn't against the Niners, so he's got to find some motivation and turn this thing around, because I think we're at an inflection point with this game. You're going to look back to this Jets game, and either we're going to get right and show up and play a whole game, which we have not played a whole game all year. We've played only 1/2 in every game. Or we're going to see another mediocre performance, and it's going to come down to the wire, and maybe we'll win, maybe we won't. Maybe we send that family home again, sad again, Schmitty. And then we're all going to really be sad. So I will not predict the Packers to score more than 24 points until I see it now. I've done it a couple times. I don't know if Aaron's ready to play a whole game, and he needs to. He needs to elevate the guys around. So it's a big question. But right now he's a bottom half quarterback. I'm just telling it like it is. He's not in the top 15 so far this year.
We saw the Patriots go out against the Lions and shut them out. The Lions were coming in as the number 1 offense in the NFL. Does the fact that were shut out by the Patriots, whom we just put up 27 in the overtime game the week before, give you any hope or any positives you can glean from that?
I think that's just the NFL as you see it week to week. There's going to be games that you scratch your head and turn your head sideways. So I wouldn't get too worked up about a stat line or a score like that. I think that's just the NFL and professionals going up against professionals every week.
Fair enough. Also in the division here, the Vikings moved to 4-1. They have a 1-game lead over us. In effect, 2 games with the head-to-head win against the Packers. How are we going to catch those guys? And what does it start? I asked it just previously here, Dad. Well, let's focus on the positives momentarily here. What does it take for us to get right against the Jets and start to catch up to the Vikings here?
I'm not very impressed with the Vikings. I mean, they squeaked it out against Detroit. They could just easily be 1-4 or 2-3. They've had some nice wins. Congratulations. We're happy for you. It's not about the Vikings. It's about us playing up to our potential. I think LaFleur had probably the right stuff to get us turned around, but he can't fight a quarterback who's not highly motivated and not performing. I just think I would guess at some point pride's going to take over here and Aaron is going to get ticked off and lift the team back up again, would be my guess. And we're going to be okay. But the next couple of weeks will tell. We're going to play the Jets and then the Commanders, and then we got Buffalo. So all hands on deck for the Jets. If you lose this one, then you're really in a full tailspin. So I think this will be a week to really see where the guys are at, and we're going to find out what we got.
What analysis do you have on the New York Football Jets here coming up for us, Schmitty? I know you've been probably closely following Breece Hall, your fantasy flex play occasionally there. He looks like he's starting to get it going. Zach Wilson hasn't exactly lit the world on fire in his first 2 seasons as an NFL quarterback. But what do you look coming from them in New York?
No, it's still a team that is still trying to find their identity. You have a new coach, relatively young corner pieces on the offense. Not too sure what they look like on defense and what kind of schemes that they're up to. I would imagine that we're going to see a lot of what we saw with Daniel Jones and Zach Wilson. I think that Zach Wilson has there's some similarities in that game, in their game. Breece Hall has been a fantastic addition for the Jets. But again, this is a get right situation for the Packers. They were supposed to start getting right, beginning with the Giants in London. That did not happen. And it would absolutely pain me to predict that the Packers would lose this week. And I don't think that they will. My prediction for the game would be Packers 23, Jets 17. But watching that game, every Packers fan, I mean, we're going to be on the edge of our seats, unfortunately. This is supposed to be a nice month. We were supposed to enjoy the fall weather, the trees, the leaves falling, as we're taking our wives for a nice walk after a Packers win. That's not afforded to us right now. And so the Jets do pose a problem based on the performances of these past few weeks. Run the ball. Run the damn ball. We need to see touches by our running backs. Aaron Jones, I want him to have 20 touches. I know that Rodgers gets to choose at the line if it's a run or a pass. Please go to the run. I think we're all better for it.
I think we showed ourselves capable in some of the, I don't know, Aaron said we hadn't put a full half together from a positive sense. I don't think we've had a full game rather. I don't think we've had a full game where we played our worst either. We've kind of been a tale of two halves a couple times, even in this Giants game where we're serviceable in the first half and then come out pretty rough in the second half. But if we play like we did in the second half, we can lose to anybody in the NFL. I think we've proved that as well. Which Packers team do we see on this following Sunday here, Dad?
I would submit to you that we played a pitiful first game, an entire game. So I would correct you on the fact that we've only
could be
played
fair,
half a game. So we've played, what are we? 3-2. They've been in 5 games, and we've played 4 halves. Is kind of where it's at, and I find that completely unacceptable and a real head scratcher. How does that happen? It's clearly a team that is in search of an identity, in search of a spark, in search of an inspirational leader. I think my position is it's largely on Joe Barry and then Aaron Rodgers not being a $50 million man. He's like a $2 million man right now. It's time for Aaron Rodgers to connect on the plays that he needs to connect on. Yes, the running game to get the play action game going. And then he needs to make plays that are there to be made. There's just no excuse about it. We got to get a better defense. And fellas, I think you'll agree with this. There comes a point in a game like the one we just played where you go ahead, 20-10, 17-3. If you have to have the killer instinct. We got to take the ball down and get the next score, and this game is over. Put a nail in the coffin instead of letting teams hang around. And good teams and good quarterbacks and good organizations sense that killer instinct, and we have none of it. So until I see it, I'm going to go 23-20 Packers in overtime. And if they don't win this one, I won't be predicting a win for quite a while. So I think they're going to dig down deep somehow and get it done. But it sure is going to be a head scratcher if they blow it again and play half a game.
It's another matchup for us against a quarterback, third one in a row, that Aaron Rodgers should be significantly better than, and he has failed to be significantly better than the previous two. So we'll see what he can do against Zach Wilson. I have a tough time betting against Aaron Rodgers in that matchup, but I would have had a tough time betting against him last week, and we saw what happened. So we're going to have to see how that goes. But I'll take the Packers. Again, I'm with you guys. It's tough to be too excited about the offense or the defense. I think it's kind of a middling score game, something like 21-17, where we don't put up a ton of points, but we don't shut them down either. And it's a close game, and we got to gut it out. So hopefully that's not the case. Hopefully we can have a game where we put the other team away here. But what are you going to say there?
Fellas, on a positive note, we get the angst out. We got a hell of a punter who seems to be a really good holder. The operation with the kicking game looks really good. Crosby seems back on track. I know we had a little problem with Amari Rodgers fumbling, but he looks more solid receiving the ball. They stripped it out, so he's going to have to work on that. But I think on balance, the special teams have been better. So I look maybe for a big play out of the special teams, maybe to get us on track. And Joe Barry's just got to get out of his way. And I hope he figures something out. But I would say if it goes like I said, he needs to be gone after next week. Let's see what happens.
Well, that's a good point you bring up just previous to that is when's the last time we had a momentum-changing special teams play in our favor? Something that changed the game and swung it our direction. We could use a spark like that. Just something to get us going, get the rhythm, and really get our mojo up that way.
We had a chance if Nixon falls on the ball in that game. If Nixon falls on that punt, we win that game. So that's how close it is. The reality is we're all ticked off. There was a half a dozen plays in that game that swing that game. Rodgers hitting Cobb in the first half, Nixon falling on the ball, Rodgers not taking a sack on the first drive in the second half, so you get a field goal on the board. So it's close, but we got to start making the winning plays.
I'm with you. Well, Schmidt, do you have any closing thoughts for us here?
It's tough to win games in the NFL. It's even tougher if you're ill prepared. Joe Barry, you have a very nice thing afforded to you as a defensive coordinator. You have one of the best cornerbacks in the league, a guy that you literally can scheme around. Please do so in this game. Let Jair man up and do everything else that you want on the backside of that defense.
Fair enough. That's a message. Hope he receives it. You can't be much clearer than that. We got one panelist saying he's gone if he doesn't get it done. We got a little pep talk from Schmitty. We'll look forward to breaking it down next week, guys. Have a good night.
Go Pack.
Go Pack. And his father shoveled horse shit all the days. When the lad was very young, they found a diamond in the dung, and they sent him off to college just to play. Hail, hail, hail to Master Beta, lift your thunder mugs on high, and we'll drink another glass to the biggest horse's ass in the brotherhood of Beta Theta Chi. Go Beta boys!